Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, especially on this, not a Freaky Friday, but a No Pants Thursday, to have you, our international friends here, gathered around to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And it is No Pants Thursday, which means, of course, I have two special guests over here. We got Joey Bishop, and she brought along Erin Cummings.
I get
Joey,
to be her
doing?
special guest today. Hi, we're doing great. We are doing very well. I have to tell you, John, I finally listened to you.
Oh.
And Tom and I started watching the Harley Quinn animated series last night.
What do you think?
You are so right. It is so good. It is so good. Okay, there were so many moments. I mean, first of all, they make no bones about it being absolutely adults only. This is not for children in any way. Like from the very first F-bomb that's dropped within the first 3 seconds. And I think it's in episode 2. There was this moment that I actually spit whatever I was drinking. I spit out of my mouth, and Tom had to rewind it multiple times when Joker is trying to talk trash about Harley to Bane, and he says, "You know she has HPV, right?" And Bane goes, "Most sexually active adults do." I was like, "Oh my God."
By the way, Bane is going to become one of your favorite characters on television.
He kind of already is.
Bane is so good.
He kind of already is. I love him.
Oh.
And I love the relationship that she has with Poison Ivy.
Oh, and it just gets better. It becomes really the heart of the show as it progresses. But
it's actually written so much like an actual female friendship. Like I would love to see the dynamic, like I would love to see what the writer's room looks like. My next deep dive is to Google every single writer on the show, because the female relationship, the dynamic that she and Poison Ivy have is so good. And I'm like, why wasn't this the movie?
And by the way,
the movie I want to see.
Do you recognize who does the voice of
Lapel.
Poison Ivy?
Oh,
yes.
Don't think that I didn't immediately. And I love the fact that...
I didn't know it was her right away. You know who I thought it was?
No, I didn't know it was. I looked everybody up, and I was thrilled to see that the plant is played by DB Smoove.
Oh, wasn't he?
Because I love him.
He continues to be great. I mean, I'm so glad you're watching that, because it is good. And by the way, guys, if you have not started watching, because, listen, I thought this Harley Quinn anime show looked terrible. I'll be honest. I had no interest in it. It's because you guys kept telling me to check it out that I did, and now I'm absolutely in love with it. So if you guys haven't checked it out, take everybody else's advice and go watch it. Anyway, guys, we are glad that you are here today. We got a number of things we're going to talk about. Here's how the show runs. The first half of the show, we're going to break it down into some of our main topics. And then in the second half of the show, we're going to throw it open to your live questions. Now, how do you get a live question or comment on the show? It's really rather simple. All you got to do is use the tip link that you see at the top of the description of this video. You can just click that or enter it manually. streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here, thank you guys very much for that. All right. Before we get into our main topics, there is kind of one off the top that we should talk about. I got this, I get emails all day from the studio saying, hey, check out our new behind the scenes feature of this. And hey, and the studio's sending, hey, check out the trailer for this. And I got this email that I kind of ignored. That was just saying, oh, look at our new trailer for Freaky. And I never heard of it, probably just a smaller independent thing that's going to go straight to VOD. And then Erin came in today and she said, have you seen this Freaky thing? It's a new play on Freaky Friday. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that. And we sat down and started to watch. Now, I cannot remember this actress's name, but I automatically like her because she's in Supernatural. So I automatically like her a lot. So it's got her, and where did he go? Her and Vince Vaughn are in this movie. And they look great. This is a horror kind of spin on Freaky Friday from
Catherine
the director.
Newton.
What's her name?
Catherine Newton.
Catherine Newton. Thank you. She was also in the Pokemon movie. She was in the Detective Pikachu movie. Anyway, it is a horseman. It's from the director of Happy Death Day. And you guys know I love Happy Death Day. It's from Blumhouse. And Erin brought it up and I said, it's probably dumb. I'm not going to check it out. And then I thought, fine. Well, I'll put it on and watch it. This was like 2 minutes before we started the show. And I'm like, and I told Erin, I said, I'm in. I actually thought it was really good. Erin, what do you think about this Freaky trailer?
I thought it was fantastic. And I have to say thank you to my Twitter friend, and I'm going to butcher your last name, Don Jariya Sunant. I don't know. DJARIYA on Twitter, who's from Lapel Mic, California. Thank you so much for putting this on our radar. I, first of all, am a huge fan of the Freaky Friday Haley Mills version from way, way back in the day. And, you know, Vince Vaughn has two Vince Vaughns for me. There's either smoking hot, like DTF Vince Vaughn, and then there's fat, bloated, drunk Vince Vaughn. And I usually don't like fat, bloated Vince Vaughn, but he's fat, bloated, drunk Vince Vaughn looking in this, and I'm all about it because he is just, he's funny, he's charming. Catherine Newton, really, just the chemistry that the two of them have together in the trailer is great. And yes, if you like Happy Death Day, which I love, there's that wonderful comedic element to it, and I think that there's a great blend of horror and comedy that, when done well with Christopher Landon, I believe is the director's name, he seems to really have his finger on the pulse of how to do the horror comedy genre great. And by the looks of this trailer, I know exactly where I'm going to be the next Friday the 13th, and I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, I like
so thanks, Don.
I can't remember if I told the story on the show before, but I like to call out when people act like really cool. Vince Vaughn, like, actually these celebrities meet like 1,000 people a day, particularly when they're doing press stuff. Vince Vaughn, he had come into my studio once to do an interview for a film he did with Chris Pratt called The Delivery Man.
Okay.
Where he found out through some sort of mistake through a sperm donor bank that he was actually the father of like 100 children or something like that. And nice. His identity got out, and so they all found, or something like that. But anyway, so he came in, and he was actually in my studio for like 3 hours one day as we did our interview, but then they did a live Twitter Q&A from our offices as well. He couldn't have been nicer. Him and Pratt were fantastic. And he hung out and talked with me and some of the staff that was in there. And he hung out and talked to Ann too, my wife Ann. So fast forward a couple of years, Ann's working at Hasbro, and they have a work day at a hotel on the coast. And they're in the foyer of the hotel, and Ann is with a bunch of her Hasbro workmates. And they realize Vince Vaughn just came walking into this big foyer of this hotel. And he looked over, and he came walking over, and he said, Ann, right? And she's like, and he stood there.
And she's immediately the most popular girl at Hasbro now. Oh, yeah. Like, that's all you need. For sure.
Anna's like, what, Ann, what did we not know? But that was really cool of him. Like, that he would like remember it. Anyway, I just
he seems like an amazing guy. Like, I would love to be friends with Vince Vaughn.
By the way, last year he appeared in this little film that not a lot of people went to go see because I didn't think it looked all that good, called Fighting with My Family. It was produced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's in it. It's a true life story about WWE wrestler Paige and how she kind of became a world famous wrestler. And Vince Vaughn is one of the stars of the film, and it's so good. And I know so many of you guys still have not seen Fighting with My Family. It's surprisingly good. So
I'll check that out. He's great in everything he does. It's just normally visually, you know, I like hot Vince Vaughn, but I will say hot or bloated, he's always funny. He's always good. I'm always a fan. So I'm excited to see. Tell me the name of that again.
Not Freaky, but My Family?
Fighting with My Family.
Yep.
I'll see Fighting with My Family, and then Friday the 13th, I will
charming little film.
Scream and laugh with Freaky. Thanks
so guys,
again, Don.
Go and check out this trailer for Freaky. Have you seen it already? If so, what did you think about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's get on to our main topics today. Now, how do we select our main topics? It's really simple. You guys select our main topics by going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on The John Campea Show. With that down, let's get on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Joanna Y, who writes, "Hello, my favorite actress is Anne Hathaway." I love Anne Hathaway. "And I just saw that she is doing a movie with director Doug Liman that is supposed to be some sort of comedy set during the pandemic. I'm not sure how I feel about this. A lot of people have died, lost their jobs, and suffered a lot during the pandemic. Is a comedy about it really that good of an idea right now? What do you think? Thank you." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yes, there has just been This news just came out the other day that Anne Hathaway, who I adore, by the way. I just absolutely adore Anne Hathaway. I think she's fantastic. Anne Hathaway signed up to do this thing called Lockdown. I believe is what it's called. Yes, it's called Lockdown. With Doug Liman, who has done a bunch of work with Tom Cruise. We're all familiar with his work with Tom Cruise. He did that film Jumper. I got to work with Doug Liman for a day on the set of Jumper, which is kind of fun. He wouldn't recognize me from Adam, and that's perfectly okay. But they are working on this little film called Lockdown. Now, this is how it's described. Anne Hathaway is in final negotiations to star in Doug Liman's Lockdown, a heist movie and romantic comedy taking place during the pandemic. So it's not really about the pandemic per se. Stephen Knight wrote the script, and PJ Van Sandwich is producing with Allison Winter, and on and on. So they really don't give us too much more about it other than it's called Lockdown. It's going to be set during the COVID-19 thing, which is hilarious because here's what happened, Aaron. A little while ago, Rob and I were doing the show, and it was a couple of months ago, and the pandemic came up. Somebody asked, "You think you can make movies about the pandemic?" And Rob and I specifically said, "Actually, think about it. You do a movie about the lockdown. You could do a heist movie. Like the world's in lockdown, you could do a heist movie." And obviously Doug Liman had the same kind of idea. So here's the thing. This is
Or they just stole yours.
Or they just, I mean, obviously.
You should 100% see
all
them.
the
It's the
studios
American
watch
way.
this show every day and steal all my ideas.
Yes.
But it does seem like a natural fit, right? It's a global situation. This is a situation environment the whole world is living in. And to use that as the backdrop, I listen, there are going to have to be stories told. We're all going over 6 months now. Half a year of the existence of this planet has been living in a basic lockdown. So there are going to be stories to be told. Happy stories, sad stories, funny stories, horror stories, whatever, as a background. So I think maybe it's too soon to make a straight up ha-ha knee-slapping comedy about COVID. Maybe. But the idea of setting a movie during this time frame, I actually, personally, I can only speak for myself. I don't personally have any issues with that. Aaron, you hear about this. What do you think about it?
You know, my initial impulse was, cringe. But after thinking about it for a minute, you look at the players involved. Stephen Knight is not to be confused with Stephen S. DeKnight, who
yes, two
wrote
different guys.
Spartacus. Yes. Stephen Knight is a very talented and very accomplished and quite respected writer. Doug Liman has an incredible body of work. Anne Hathaway, regardless of what the haters want to say about her personally, I don't care. She is like, it's not even a conversation. She is incredibly talented. You cannot watch Les Mis without believing that she is just an undeniable talent. So those three people involved, I go, all right, clearly they know something that I don't. This is what drives me crazy, though. You know that I hate clickbait, headlines about movies where they're like, hey, blah, blah, blah. But we're not going to tell you anything about the movie, but we're just going to give you this one little carrot. I hate those things. Tell me about the movie. Tell me what the plot line is. All we're hearing is the clickbait of pandemic and comedy. The heist is sort of buried in there a little bit. And the reality is we've already been seeing projects that have to do with the pandemic. We've already seen, the All Rise did an episode that was a socially distant episode. We're seeing, television episodes where people are streaming and they're all coming in from different, there are different backgrounds, and we're all in on the reality that there is a pandemic happening. So why would that not also translate to the film industry as well? That being said, I agree with you. As long as it's not done in a isn't the pandemic so fun? Look at all these people out of work. Look at all these people that are homeless. And I don't think that just because it's set in this time period does not mean that it's going to be a laugh out loud romp about this time period. Yes. And so I think that we really need to differentiate those things. So I'm remaining cautiously optimistic that they are going to do this with the sensitivity that it requires, and that the comedy is going to be more about the actual circumstances that maybe could happen in any other time period, but the actual specifics of it are going to be how to nuance a heist within this new world that we're living in.
Right. And listen, I completely agree. You don't make the butt of the jokes the virus itself. Obviously, I just think if you set it as the background, it can be perfectly fine. And
yeah, I mean, look at SNL coming back after 9/11.
Yes, that was a great example of it. And and I agree. I don't care what anybody says. I think Anne Hathaway is awesome. I think she's just flat out awesome. So
she is.
I'm looking forward to seeing this. And remember, this movie is still. They haven't even started shooting it yet. They're just locking things down. This movie ain't going to come out for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So it's going to be well distanced away from us. Anyway, guys, what do you think about the sounds of this? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Jared Oberfeld. And Jared Oberfeld writes... Well, this sucks. Deadline is reporting that Wonder Woman is possibly going to be bumped off of its October 2nd release, and Dune may not release this year. Your thoughts, and keep it filthy. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, yesterday we were just all celebrating the fact that the Dune trailer dropped, right? I thought the trailer could have been better, to be honest with you. I liked it. Dune is still my number one most anticipated film of the year. It's going to be awesome. Personally, I thought the trailer could have been a little bit better. That being what it is. But we're all excited about Dune maybe coming out. Now, it's supposed to be coming out later this year. What is supposed to be coming out sooner is Wonder Woman. During the pandemic, we all know that a movie getting bumped, as Wonder Woman has already been a couple of times, that Wonder Woman getting bumped again is definitely a possibility. Well, there are other things that may cause Wonder Woman to get bumped that we haven't even considered. Check this out. This does come from us from the folks over at Deadline, and they wrote the following. With New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco movie theaters still not open, our exhibition sources are telling us, or are hearing that Warner Brothers is apt, they're thinking about, moving Wonder Woman 1984 again, this time out of its current October 2nd date to either sometime in November or possibly late December. And if they did that, that would bump the studio's legendary feature Dune out of its December 18th weekend to sometime in 2021. Tennant is another reason why. Think about this. I never thought about this before, but think about it. Tennant is another reason why Wonder Woman 84 may not be able to go during the first weekend of October, with sources currently estimating that New York and Los Angeles won't open movie theaters until early October or in late September. The Christopher Nolan movie will still need to make a big splash in those markets, or at least make its best effort. Having Wonder Woman 84 in Tennant's way won't help its hopeful domestic tale at the end of at the box office. So basically, we're sitting here looking now at a situation where Wonder Woman, which has been bumped a couple of times because of the pandemic, may get moved again, but not because of the pandemic. Problem number one is, of course, Tennant. If Los Angeles and New York, and we're starting to slowly see some counties, San Diego has opened theaters, Orange County is opening theaters tomorrow. So they're slowly starting to open, but the biggest markets like New York City, Los Angeles, things like that, still closed, may not open till October. That's when they really want to make a big splash with Tennant. Can't do it if they got their other big movie, Wonder Woman, open at the same time. So maybe we need to move it. Well, where do we move it to? Well, they don't want to bump Wonder Woman too much further because they've already bumped it a couple of times. So maybe November, December, not too far off. But if you do, you've got Dune sitting there. Well, then what do we do with Dune? So now we're looking at Wonder Woman getting affected. We're looking at Dune getting affected. And listen, Aaron, I get it. There's a part of me that wants to say, hey, wait, we've been waiting for Dune, okay? Dune had that release date. Let's let Dune come out. Wonder Woman, you get pushed to February or March. I get that. But at the same time, Wonder Woman has already been delayed a number of times. If you need to push it again for Tennant, you don't want to move it much. Maybe by 8 weeks, something like that. But you don't want to get into 16 weeks, 24 weeks, whatever with that. And if it means having to bump Dune a couple of months, maybe that. So we could see an entire new reshuffling of things here, just for the sake of them wanting to make sure Tenet gets its proper Los Angeles and New York, the biggest city markets, out there. Aaron, you're looking at this. If you're in charge of Warner Brothers, what do you do with this whole mess right now? What do you think the best approach is?
Well, if I'm in charge of Warner Brothers, what I'm also looking at are the numbers for Tennant so far. You know, outside of the Los Angeles and the New York market, Tennant is not it's not doing well, even with the theaters that are open and then practicing all the social distancing measures. Theaters are not seeing the sold out numbers that they were expecting. The numbers that Tennant is pulling in are just not that high from everything that I've been reading so far. So I think that they want to space that out a little bit more. I do believe that New York theaters are going to open a little bit sooner than we maybe thought, because just what was it, yesterday or the day before, it was announced that New York restaurants are going to be open for indoor dining.
Right.
So that gives me an indication that maybe New York is a little closer to opening their theaters than perhaps we thought. If people are going to be able to go inside restaurants and eat, obviously you don't have masks on when you're eating. That gives me an indication that New York is starting to slowly, open things back up. Theaters are not going to be far behind. Obviously, that's a huge industry in New York. If I'm in charge of Warner Brothers, I am just going to bump Wonder Woman to one of the big holidays, Thanksgiving or Christmas. And then even if Dune gets bumped to 2021, which obviously we want it sooner rather than later, but I want to see a much bigger rollout for Dune. I feel like the people who know about Dune and know that Dune is coming are the people who are already anticipating Dune, the people who already were fans of the franchise. But outside of that group of people, Warner Brothers isn't really marketing the film and saying, hey, if you're not familiar with this brand, if you're not familiar with this, we're going to bring you in, we're going to teach you about it. Right now, everything's sort of all jumbled up with maybe it's Wonder Woman, maybe it's Dune, maybe it's this. I want to see Wonder Woman have its proper opening. And then I want to see the focus of marketing on Dune and then open it later. I don't want it to be shuffled around. And I feel like Dune just might get lost if we don't give it its proper marketing time separate from Wonder Woman.
Right. And, you're saying something that I was kind of talking about Dune is that I think, the comparisons to Wonder Woman 2049 to Blade Runner 2049 was that, Blade Runner trailers came out and a bunch of people raved about it. It's like, but my concern was these trailers are not telling people what this movie's about. I don't think Blade Runner is as popular amongst general people as other people think. And so the core audience thought it was going to be huge. It turned out to be a flop, even though the movie is great. And I think a lot of people are overestimating how much of the general movie-going audience cares about Dune so far. And that's why I really felt like when the new trailer came out, that trailer needed to specifically target people who are unfamiliar with Dune.
Yes.
And instead, I felt like the first trailer came out and it was specifically targeted at people like me who already knew about Dune and already care about Dune. And I think that might bite them in the ass later. So I think you're right. I think in this whole terms of with Wonder Woman and everything, you're going to want to make sure Dune has its own focus. So it's going to be interesting to see. The question for you guys is, what would you do? I mean, this is, through no fault of Warner Brothers, this is a little bit of a mess. I mean, what do you do with it? You want to make sure Tennant gets a proper boom in Los Angeles and New York. Wonder Woman's already been bumped. What do you do with Dune? How do you approach it if you're in charge of Warner Brothers? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Walton McGuire. And Walton McGuire writes, hello, John and Aaron. If she's there, and she is here as a matter of fact.
Yes, she is. Hello.
One of the movies I'm really excited about is Eternals. You, me, and a lot of people, my friend. I was bummed when it got knocked out to 2021, but it's getting closer. Just wondering if you saw what Kumail Nanjiani's comments about the movie. It pushed my excitement into overdrive. What did you think about his comments, and do they get you more hyped for Eternals? Thanks. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And of course, not the next MCU movie to come, because the next MCU movie we're waiting on is, of course, Black Widow. But the next big one after that is Eternals, with a killer cast, top to bottom, being led by Angelina Jolie. And one of my favorite guys in Hollywood, ever since I saw The Big Sick, one of my favorite guys in Hollywood, Kumail Nanjiani. This dude is absolutely bonkers hilarious. I love watching this guy on screen, even when I'm not even particularly fond of the movie he's in. Stuber anybody. That being said, I love Kumail Nanjiani. And Kumail Nanjiani came out and he was talking a little bit about Eternals. And he said this. He said, I know there isn't much news yet. I'm in the dark too. Like just about, hey, when's the trailer's going to drop and all this kind of stuff. I'm in the dark too. Trust me. I can't wait for it. Whenever it comes. But I promise the movie will be worth the wait. It is the most exciting, fun, epic, thrilling, hilarious, and moving project I have ever been a part of. This is the guy from The Big Sick saying this is going to be more moving than any... Really? Because The Big Sick was pretty damn moving.
And he wrote it about him and his wife.
And it's damn hilarious. And it's damn hilarious. Project I've ever been a part of. And it's massive. The scale of it is unlike anything I have ever seen. I would walk on to shoot and be awestruck by the sets every single day, he says. All right. First thing I should mention to get this out of the way. This is one of the stars of the movie. I mean, what do we expect him to say? Yeah, it's going to be all right. No, of course he's going to hype it up. But still, with that grain of salt there, it is cool to hear a guy who's kind of as blunt and as kind of, he just wears his heart on his sleeve as Kumail Nanjiani to talk so much about this. And look, it shouldn't surprise us too terribly much. This, of course, is a project that was able to lure Angelina Jolie to come into the world and become kind of the head and the main face of it, as well as a lot of other players. It is the MCU. It is under Kevin Feige. So, I mean, maybe we shouldn't be all that shocked and surprised. Does Kumail's comments get me more hyped for the movie? Even knowing this is just PR coming from one of the stars, I'd be lying if I said it didn't increase my excitement at least by a little bit. And I'm already pretty excited for Eternals. I mean, it's not my most anticipated film but for 2021 by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm excited for it. And even though this is one of the stars of the movie, I got to say, Aaron, it does get me even a little bit more excited. So I like hearing this type of enthusiasm. Aaron, you've heard Kumail's comments here. Are you more excited for Eternals now? Or as an actress yourself, do you know that this is just part of the game and it doesn't really move your needle? What are you thinking right now?
Well, first, I love that the graphic, I know that you didn't choose this graphic, but I love that the graphic that was chosen behind the quote was him shirtless, which I think is just going to be like the image. I mean, it just, Kumail Nanjiani's transformation for this film, and his physique being plastered everywhere is quite funny, and good for him for having the commitment. No, this doesn't sound like an actor just kind of giving fluff, because this isn't happening at a press junket. This isn't happening. He doesn't have to go into that much superfluous detail about his enthusiasm over the film at this point in the game. We haven't even seen excuse me, we haven't seen a trailer.
There's a picture for you.
There it is.
He got, because if you saw The Big Sick, he's not a big guy.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Silicon Valley fan, and like he's that. You would just never expect that from him. It's kind of like when Ryan Reynolds made his transformation from being the National Lampoon guy to how he looked in Blade 3. Right. And it transformed his career. So good for him. Good for Kumail. This sounds really authentic. He doesn't give off that he's the type of Hollywood actor that just blows smoke for the sake of blowing smoke. Again, we're so far away from the film actually coming out that this sounds to me like a guy who is really excited, who is almost as if he's a fan himself. And when you see someone that, like you said, wears his heart on his sleeve, doesn't seem to give a lot of, doesn't seem to blow smoke a lot for projects that he's in. He's not just saying, oh yeah, it seems like it's going to be a really cool project and they clearly spent a lot of money because the sets were amazing. No, he is as excited about this film as, maybe fans who have seen the first trailer would be. So I think this is a really good indication that there's something exciting coming down the pipeline. I am looking forward to seeing a trailer. I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more about the story and where they're going to go, like how far into the comics are actually going to delve. And if he's excited, I'm excited. I'm a fan.
Listen, I'm always looking forward to trailers for movies I'm excited about and that I want to see. But with Eternals, there's more. Like I'm more excited for the trailer for Eternals almost than I am for the movie itself, because I have no idea what this movie's even going to feel like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look, yeah, I'm looking forward to a trailer for Godzilla versus Kong. But you know what that movie's going to be, right? I'll look forward to the next trailer for Black Widow. But you know what that movie's going to feel like.
Right.
You can look forward to the next, maybe Amazon's Lord of the Rings show. But you know what it's going to feel like. What they're going to do with Eternals, I have no idea. Like, I have no idea what this is going to feel like.
Do you know offhand who is directing? Who's the director?
I forget her name. I should, let me pull.
Oh, she's, I saw a picture of her yesterday.
I'll pull it up here. So the
Asian woman. Yes,
I knew that. Chloe Zhao. That's who's directing it. That's
he speaks very highly of her,
right?
And says that she just doesn't. What is her background? Like, I'm just curious, because a lot of times you see directors have a certain tone that they carry through. And even though, yes, we're in Feige land and he's going to have his finger on whatever is happening, and so he's going to control it to make sure that it fits into the entire universe. Having an idea of her background and other projects that she's directed also will give us a little bit of a hint.
The only thing I've ever seen of hers, now she's got Nomadland, I believe that either has come out already this year or hasn't yet. The only thing I got turned on to this one movie she did called The Rider, only after I heard she was directing Eternals.
The Writer with a T or the Rider with a D?
Like, it's about a cowboy, suffers an injury, all this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
I got turned on to that, brilliantly directed, but that's the only thing I've seen of her. So it's going to be interesting what we see. Now, some people may say, well, if she's never done anything like large scale, why do that? All I can say is go back to what Kevin Feige told me when I had him and James Gunn and Chris Pratt in studio to talk about Guardians. I asked Feige, I said, James Gunn, because you got to remember, before that first Guardians movie, James Gunn had done low budget, like a smaller stuff. Mm-hmm. And I said, was there any concern in your part for that? And because he hasn't done this. And all Kevin Feige said was, a good storyteller is a good storyteller. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's a $5,000 budget or a $500 million budget. I mean, there's no such thing as a $500 million budget, but I mean,
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Because if you're a good storyteller, you're a good storyteller, and that's clearly the same approach Kevin. Feige
that's how you
here.
Sometimes see people that, like we were talking about. What was that horrible trailer that you showed me the other day? The one that made me jump out of my skin, and I hate you for it.
Oh,
Lights Out.
Lights Out.
Like, if you can tell.
That was fabulous. It was a short film, not a trailer. It was that too?
Right. Sorry, a short film. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. No, it's great.
And if you did scream. You scared Joey. You screamed so hard.
She jumped off of my lap. I was afraid that your neighbors were going to call the cops. I sounded like I was being stabbed. But that's the thing is, if you can tell a good story in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then you can tell a good story when you're given more money and more time. So, because in fact, that's one of the things that a lot of times filmmakers do have a problem with is, how do I tell a complete story in 10 minutes or 20 minutes? Well, if you can do that, well, then having extra time and extra money is just going to make your talent that much better, that much broader.
All right, question here is, guys, I want to know what you think about Kumail's comments here about Eternals. And I want to know what you guys think about Eternals in general. So I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. Just before the show started, I created this poll. And by the way, you can find this poll on the community tab on the YouTube channel. By the way, guys, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel to keep up to date on everything going on, including the polls that we put up in the community tab. And I asked you guys just before the show started this simple question. I asked, Kumail Nanjiani is raving about the upcoming Marvel film Eternals. If you had to guess, where do you think Eternals will end up amongst the other MCU films? Right now, a little over 4,000 of you guys have voted, and here's how you guys have voted. Only 7% of you are guessing that Eternals is going to end up as a top 5 MCU movie. A full 47% of you think it's going to be a top 10 MCU movie. 39% of you thinking it's going to be in the bottom half of the MCU movies. And only 8% of you are worried that it might end up in the bottom 5 of the MCU. So it seems like everybody's feeling pretty good, not overly optimistic, but feeling pretty solid. Like I said, 54% of you are at least thinking he's going to be in the top half. So that's interesting to see. I'm going to leave this poll up for the rest of the day. Jump on over there. Again, it's in the community tab to register your vote. But for now, you guys can jump into the comment section below and leave your thoughts. What do you think about these comments? Where's your excitement for the Eternals right now? All right, guys. With that all down and out of the way, let's now move in and start taking your guys' live questions. And once again, you can start firing in a live comment or question simply by using the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. All right, let's get on over to it and get things started. And we're going to get things started here with Michael McCann, who writes, just when I was completely over movie trailers using slowed down versions of classic rock songs, it is a common trailer trope. Dune goes ahead and uses one perfectly. This film looks amazing. I can't wait. Keep bringing the filthy. And listen, there are a bunch of people that agree with you. I disagree. I thought it's a great song. Don't get me wrong. It's a fabulous song. Misplaced. I did not think it worked for this trailer. I thought this trailer should have had a classic, powerful score to it. Again, to me, and I understand the symbolism of using that particular cover and you know whose song it is as it relates to old Dune. I get it. I understand that. But I really think, and that's why, like, we did the poll yesterday, and less than 60% of you guys said that the new trailer for Dune made you more excited for it. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that I feel like this trailer was more targeted at us than the wider audience. And that just makes me a little bit nervous because that's the same approach they took with the Blade Runner 2049 marketing, another Denis Villeneuve film, a film that turned out awesome, but didn't get the box office results. So, but there are a bunch of people who really liked it, Michael. I'm glad you did. All right, next up, Captain Brad Brickley writes, I didn't think any movie could top my excitement meter more than The Batman. Then came along Dune. Wow, that blew me away. I got to read that book now because I am stoked up for this film. I can only hope my local IMAX is open. If not, drive-in it is. Listen, there's a reason why Dune has been my #1 most anticipated film of the year. I cannot wait for this. You got one of the best directors working today directing it. He put together a great cast. He's got some fantastic source material, difficult source material to make. But I am beyond stoked for this movie. Beyond stoked for this movie. Shadow Jester writes, when John Boyega says that they planned Rey and Kylo, he didn't mean everything, but Rey was planned to be the hero and the focus. With himself, he meant how much he was marketed as a main focal point in 7, but relegated to a side piece in 8 and more so in 9. Again, but he's wrong. I mean, that's the thing. I love John Boyega, but he was wrong. He had a lot of screen time. He was given his own story thread. It just wasn't a good story thread. And yeah, I mean, and again, what frustrates me, especially as a big fan of John Boyega, what frustrates me about his comments was it was all me. It's not about him. It's the character. He is there to serve the character. And yeah, they blew his character. They misused his character, but they blew every character and they misused every character. And with Rey, see, at least his character with Finn, they kind of misused it. They didn't completely bend it over with lube and completely screw it like they did with Rey's character. Like that character, they just botched, like right from the beginning. And her comments yesterday kind of confirmed that. And so, yeah, I love Boyega. Can't wait to watch him for every movie he does for the rest of his career. But there's a little bit of me universe about his comments that were a little bit off-putting, and I just think he was objectively wrong. I just thought he was objectively incorrect. All right, Subtle McShave writes, with the mentioning of Game of Thrones in the Mandalorian article, how long into the series will they go before Baby Yoda is killed off in a horrific way? Aaron, I can't remember. I know Tom has. I'm just going to go on a limb and believe Tom has, but I can't remember. Have you watched Mandalorian season 1?
Yes.
Okay, I just couldn't remember if we talked. I didn't want to assume anything.
Yes.
So they showed the first images yesterday. Nothing ground shaking. You know, there's a picture of Mandalorian. There's a picture of Cara Dune. There's a picture of, keep forgetting Carl Weathers' character's name. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's the child. And Jon Favreau was saying, you know, we're also going to do multi-stories like in Game of Thrones, because in Game of Thrones, they have multiple things going on at the same time. We're going to get into that a little bit, which made us think that, oh, so we're going to see Mando and the child doing something, but then we're going to see Cara Dune and Carl Weathers' character off somewhere else doing something. Game of Thrones, much like Sons of Anarchy, kind of became known as a show as like, don't get too attached to the characters you love. Do you think I know the Stubble is asking in jest. I know that. But do you think there is any possibility that they could kill the child?
No.
None?
No.
None?
No.
You don't think that
it will not happen. The uproar, the outcry, the anger, the seething, the spitting that would happen. No, there's no way it's not going to happen. We will lose Mando before we will lose the child. I'm calling it right now. I mean, just for the sheer fact that it's a baby, you know? I mean, it's not a baby, but it's a child. Like
50 years old. Yeah,
exactly. No, I don't see that happening. I mean, they see the value in that child. You know, people who were not even that interested, but were kind of like, I'm watching because I'm sitting next to someone who's really interested, all of a sudden found themselves, you know, gleefully excited every time the child would come. And I'm not talking about myself here, you know, talking about other people. No, but that's not going to happen. But I do like the idea of them spreading out and having these different universes and having different storylines. The one character that I will say I really don't want to have as a storyline is the mechanic, played by Amy Sedaris, and I love Amy Sedaris, but my God, that character was so like I wanted to just drive an ice pick through my skull every time she came on and started talking. I thought it was so ridiculous.
I hated that episode, actually. It's the one episode I really, really didn't like.
Yeah, so as long as the mechanic, I mean, Amy Sedaris can come back in another type of role, you know, as something else, but just don't have the mechanic. Or you know what? Bring the mechanic back and kill her. Like, chop her head off. I'm fine with that. But no, they're not touching the baby.
There was, I don't know how we did it, but I was over at Ray's the other day, and we went down this rabbit hole on YouTube of watching reaction videos of people watching the final episode of Mandalorian season 1.
Okay.
And whenever they got to the part where the stormtrooper has the child in the bag and then slaps the bag.
Oh gosh. Oh no. Horrified.
People would lose their shit.
Of course.
They're watching. They're just watching. Then the slap happens. Like, whoa, what are you doing? Like people got so mad. Can you imagine if they killed the child?
Oh yeah. No. People,
like some Tusken Raider comes along and just out of nowhere kills the child. Child's dead.
That's it. I'm never watching this show ever again.
I'm never watching Disney
Cut
Plus
to the
again.
next week.
I'm never watching television again.
Right.
Man, it would be. Now I want.
I would enjoy watching.
Balls to do it.
I would enjoy watching those reaction videos.
Oh my God, they would be the best. Did you ever see reaction videos to the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones?
No. Kind of, sort of.
So good.
I saw my reaction video, which I didn't realize that Tom was videotaping, because he had seen the first 4 seasons of the show of Game of Thrones, and I didn't have HBO, so I had not seen it. And so, as a loving new boyfriend does, he rewatched the entire first 4 seasons with me, and he would be in the corner like videotaping my reaction. And my reaction to the Red Wedding, it was pretty bad.
Okay, I got to talk to Tom because I got to see that. I got to see that video. Okay, next up, Mike Chamberlain writes, hello, John and Rob. Rob is obviously not here today. As a space enthusiast, I've always enjoyed space movies. My question is, what are Rob's thoughts on the new The Right Stuff? Is it needed? Why not do a series on Gemini and Space Lab? I think the original movie really can't be improved on. There's a couple things I want to comment on that, though, Mike. Number one, you asked the question, is it needed? No film in cinematic history was ever needed. Let's just call that what it is. No movie ever made, period, was ever needed. You tell it because you got a story to tell, and there may be an audience there who wants to see it. That's why you make movies. The second thing is the original can't be improved upon. Well, I mean, is that the bar? I mean, look, you can't improve. When Martin Scorsese wanted to make The Departed, you're not going to improve upon the original, Infernal Affairs. You're just not going to improve on the original. but he made a great movie nonetheless. He made a great movie. Won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Won Martin Scorsese his first Academy Award as a director. The question is, can you make it better than the original? Who cares? All I need to know is, are you going to make a movie that is another movie for us to enjoy? If it's another good movie, it's a win for everybody. So no such thing as one that's needed. Now, look, I don't know enough about Gemini and Space Lab, but it may just be that the story of The Right Stuff is a more compelling cinematic kind of story that you can tell than the other ones. Plus, there's some name recognition as well. So there's probably a lot of reasons. But you're right. I would have been curious to hear what Rob's thoughts on that are, because he's a huge space enthusiast.
Well,
right.
Personally, I know a little bit about Gemini. And if you would like to explore the different...
We're not talking about zodiac signs. Love the look you just gave me.
The Mercury 7 actually is the better storyline because they were the first.
Really?
And yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you would watch a little show that was on ABC called Astronaut Wives Club.
Of course. Why? How did I not clue into that instantly? Of course.
You know, where a little actress named Erin Cummings might have played Marge Slayton, the wife to Deke Slayton. Yeah, so I do know a little bit about the Mercury 7 as well as the Gemini and the Apollo. Yeah, which we explored those launches as well.
I just brought up for those of you, I cannot believe I clued out on that. Of course,
I can't believe either.
Of course, one of Aaron's shows was the Astronaut Wives Club. I cannot believe I
and we fully explore all of the astronauts. It's not just about the wives. We explore the astronauts and their stories, but it is about the how the wives played a part. The shoulders upon which America's heroes stood.
So there you go. I can't believe I froze on that one. Of course you heard that. All right, next up. MD writes, some non-film related media pages like Complex posted the Dune trailer, and a lot of the comments were pure confusion. Someone asked if it was a Star Wars spinoff. Big marketing job ahead. No, it's true. But look, we've always known that Dune was all going to be about its marketing. The success of Dune is really going to all be about its marketing. It is, history has shown, Dune is a difficult property to adapt, and a particular challenge to communicate to an audience before they see it. The marketing of Dune is going to be everything. And I didn't think the first trailer was a great first trailer, to be honest with you. But it's a difficult job. I couldn't have done any better, obviously. But it's going to be really interesting to see over the coming weeks and months how their whole campaign strategy is targeted. Because you're right, it is a this is going to be one of the most difficult films to market in a long, long time. I agree with that. All right, Orange Hand writes, so the Dune trailer uses the term crusade instead of jihad. Why do you think this is? To avoid association with any real world parallels, or is it something else? I think, Orange Hand, it's you trying to, honestly, and I do this all the time myself, I think it's trying to read too much far into what's in a trailer and when we haven't even seen the movie. So we just caught a glimpse of something. I wouldn't try to make an issue out of it, nor would I try to search for hidden meaning in that or anything. Let's see the movie and see how that goes. It's just a trailer, so I wouldn't look anything beyond that, honestly, because you're talking to a guy who does that all the time. So let's try not to do that. All right, Devontae Brown writes, didn't know if this would be a topic for today or later, but Walking Dead is finally ending with a 24-episode final season with Daryl and Carol spinoff planned, which really means it's another season of Walking Dead, just with a couple of different characters. Anyway, spinoff plan. Will you be checking out how the conclusion since you saw most of the run? I don't. Aaron, I can't remember. Have you watched Walking Dead at all?
I watched like the first couple
Or are you
seasons.
about to tell me that you starred in 4 seasons and I totally forgot about that?
Pretty much. I mean, once I did Mad Men, I was like, I don't need to watch the show anymore. You know, once I do a show, I'm like, all right, I'm good. I did audition for Walking Dead, and
really?
Several times, yes. And what was the other one? The one that was it
Fear the Walking Dead?
Fear the Walking Dead. Yeah. I've auditioned for it several times, and I always was kind of butthurt that I didn't get it. And then when I was working in Atlanta, I was talking to some of the background actors that I was, sitting with, and they had done background on Walking Dead and were explaining to me the conditions of just being covered in dirt and the the night shoots, and it just sounded horrible. And it's not that I'm prissy. You know, like, I don't mind. I mean, I did a movie called Bitch Slap, which shot completely in the desert, and I didn't have a double. And like, I don't mind getting a little dirty, but just at a certain point, it's kind of like how at this point in my life, I want to stay in a nice hotel. I'm not gonna stay in a hostel. I did that when I was 21 years old. I don't do it anymore. I kind of feel that way about my acting. I just don't want to be rolling around in the dirt.
But do you watch?
Oh, back to your original question, not about my career. Sorry, I got off track. Yeah, I saw the first couple of seasons and, I liked it. It's a really well done show. Clearly people know, there's a lot of people watching it, but I kind of just fell off after a while.
Yeah, I hung in there till about, I never loved the show. I'll be honest. I never loved it, but I liked it for the most part. And then finally, I think it might have been 2 seasons ago, I finally said, okay, I tapped out. I said, okay, enough's enough. Now, somebody just told me that the villain of the last couple of seasons, and I had no idea, is actor Ryan Hurst, who plays one of my all-time favorite television characters, Ope, on Sons of Anarchy. And
that's how I know that name. Yeah.
Right. And I had no idea. One of our viewers yesterday mentioned that. It's like, I had no idea he was even on the show. But honestly, I don't have any plans to get caught up. I watched a lot of seasons of Walking Dead, and
you put in your time.
And
you did it.
I don't plan on watching it out. I mean, who knows? Maybe if the pandemic stretches to the end of next year and all production gets shut down and we're kind of scrounging for things to watch, maybe I'll put it on. But I'm kind of. Yeah, I put. But
I love and celebrate the idea of any show that's had the longevity. I mean, hell, like Grey's Anatomy, good for them. All those people that are working, all those crew people, all those actors, all those props, locations. There's a lot of people who have continued to stay employed because of Walking Dead and for The Walking Dead. Good for them. I just have a short attention span, I guess.
All right, next up, Mark C. writes. Snowpiercer, not a traditional enough to make the comic book list. Sir, it's not just a graphic novel. It's a series containing 5 novels. If you count Scott Pilgrim, you need to count this. No, I don't. I really don't. And you know what? You just made an argument that maybe I shouldn't have counted Scott Pilgrim either. I mean, Scott Pilgrim really is more of a traditional comic book in some ways, but I think you're making an argument and convincing me, by the way, that maybe I shouldn't have counted Scott Pilgrim either. Just given what the nature of that list is about actors who appeared in different, comic book movie universes, maybe I shouldn't have counted Scott Pilgrim either. Anyway, next up. Cobb writes, I watched Tennant at an AMC Dolby, and the soundtrack noise was obnoxiously loud. There's probably a good movie under there, but I could only hear about 30% of it. I'm so sad I couldn't enjoy this movie because of how painful the sound was. It hurt my ears. And again, this gets back to a topic we've been talking a bunch about. Is that, listen, Christopher Nolan, clearly one of the best directors of our age, but his Achilles heel quite often seems to be his really bad sound mixing. Whether it's people not being able to even hear and understand the dialogue being spoken, or certain things being too loud, or all this kind of stuff. It is one of those things. And I haven't seen Tenet myself. I think I might finally get to see it tomorrow. But I will let you know.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
You drove to Rhode Island to see...
No, I didn't drive to Rhode Island.
Whatever that movie was.
I drove to Vegas to see New Mutants.
You drove to Vegas to see New Mutants. Yes. But you still haven't seen Tenet.
Well, what happened was on Saturday, this past Saturday, Ann and I had bought tickets to see it in San Diego, because San Diego, the theaters had opened. So Ann's hometown of Corona, where her family lives, is halfway. So we went to Corona the night before, and then we were going to, the next day, go down to San Diego. Some stuff came up, and we couldn't leave in time to get down to San Diego to watch the movie. So we still hadn't seen it. So I still haven't seen it. Now, the theaters in Orange County, which is only about 45 minutes away, is tomorrow. So I'm hoping I'm going to get a chance to go out and see Tenet tomorrow.
Got it. Well, why don't you take the train down? I feel like the train to San Diego is such it's so civilized. It's so lovely.
Listen. I have a difficult, it's hard enough for me to go into a grocery store or into a movie theater. And I'll only go into the movie theater if I look around first and see that they're following some pretty strict guidelines. I'm taking my car.
You know what? I have to be honest. I've been having these moments lately. And I don't know if if it's just a senior moment or if I need to take more B vitamins or something. I have these moments, and it just happened when I suggested that you get on a fucking train where I forget.
We live in a world right now. Yeah,
we were Tom and
me too. I do it all the time.
We had to pick something up at Target yesterday, and I was like, okay, you go to Target, and I'm gonna go to this other place and just run in and grab something really quick. I was just like gonna run into Starbucks and grab a thing. And I got out of the car, and I'm just like walking around, not even thinking about the fact that I'm not wearing a mask. And all of a sudden, I realized I'm about to walk into Starbucks, and then I'm like, well, they're not going to let me in Starbucks. And they're not going to. And I had forgotten my phone, so then I was like, well, I'll go into Target and I'll find Tom, and because he had the car keys. So I didn't have a mask, and I have Joey with me, and I literally picked her up and I put her in front of my face. So I was like holding her like a mask, and I go to walk into Target, and the guy's like, ma'am, do you have a mask? And he's just waiting for me to like Karen out on him. Oh yeah. He was like, ma'am, do you have a mask? And I immediately said, I'm so sorry. I'm looking for my husband. So it was just this really bizarre moment where I just forgot what world we're living in. And I just had that moment again. Do you ever have that?
Oh, all the time. All the time. Like
where I just forget. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's 2019.
It's different. It's all good now. But yes, hopefully tomorrow I will get a chance to go finally and see Tennant. Okay. Maybe I'll go to Vegas and watch it.
Oh, Jesus.
No.
What is it with you driving states away to go see movies?
But Anne has to go to Vegas this weekend. I forgot about that.
Why?
Her and Corey, she just offered to go with Corey. Corey's mom lives in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So she offered to go to make the drive with Corey and go her. So I'm thinking, oh, well, if Anne wants to attend too, maybe I'll just go to Vegas and get tickets because I know the theater there, they run it really safe.
You've been there?
I've been there. I know it.
She's driving out there anyway?
She's driving. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Or maybe I'll just do the 45-minute drive to Orange County. Okay, next up, Ryan Hurst in The Walking Dead. There you go, writes. Like you, I gave up a few seasons ago, but Hurst, the main villain the last 2 seasons, and he's amazing and scary as fuck. Just Google image Ryan Hurst beta just to see how he looks. Season 9 and 10 are the best 2 of The Walking Dead. Season 6 through 8 did suck. New showrunner really turned it around. I'm here's the thing. I've heard a number of people say that the show really did pick up in quality the last couple of years. And don't get me wrong, I don't think The Walking Dead got terrible. I didn't stop watching because I just thought it got terrible. I just I get it. I mean, Walking Dead is still, it's The Walking Dead. I just kind of I was done. That's it. It's not that it got bad to me, but it is Ryan Hurst. So I might at some point get convinced to go and check it out. Thank you for the recommendation, man. All right, Marie Seafring writes, hi, John and Aaron. I've seen several Firefly reruns. I love Firefly. But I have never had an opportunity to see its movie continuation, Serenity. One of the best sci-fi movies I've seen in the last 15, 20 years. See its continuation, Serenity, until last week. Chiwetel Ejiofor, which is the movie that I discovered Chiwetel Ejiofor. Chiwetel Ejiofor is spectacular as the operative, and good Canadian kid Nathan Fillion and crew are great. I really enjoyed Serenity. Thanks for reminding me to look for it. Over the years, I had forgotten about it. Yeah, nobody went to go see Serenity. Like that movie came out, and nobody went to go see it.
I didn't.
Most people didn't. Most people didn't. It is wonderful. And here's the best thing about Serenity. You would think that in order to be able to go and watch Serenity and understand it and be able to follow it, you would think that you would have had to have watched the show Firefly. Because that Serenity is just Firefly under a different name. Because the name of the ship is Serenity. So they named the movie Serenity. And you don't. They made this movie in a way that it is a perfect continuation of the show, but if you've never seen the show, you'd be able to just jump in.
Which is great and what it should be.
They did a great job of it, and it is and it's wonderful and charming and just a fantastic sci-fi movie. But again, what's really highlighted to me is that it was the first time I ever took note of who's that guy, and it was Chiwetel Ejiofor. And for those of you who watch my show regularly, you know he's one of my absolute favorite actors. Like, I think he's a top 5, 6 best actors in the world. And if it wasn't for the McConaissance, he would have had an Academy Award on his mantle right now for 12 Years a Slave. But as the Operative, top 10 greatest film villain ever as the Operative. Because as the Operative, he's not one of these villains who is like, well, I'm going to do evil as he's twirling his mustache. He sees himself as doing right.
Which is what villains do. Villains don't know they're bad. They genuinely believe
Everybody's
that what
the hero of their own story.
Yes, of course. And if you play someone like, oh, this girl's a bitch. Oh, that guy's an asshole. Well, then you've already, like, that's like rule number one as an actor is you can't play what, you know, the idea of what someone is. You just have to play the truth of what they are. Yeah. And everyone believes that they are doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, and every once you can get characters that don't. For Hans Gruber in Die Hard, you know, bad guy. The Emperor, bad guy. Yes, but
even Hans Gruber had some mustache twirling, intentional. Yes. Like if it's intentional mustache twirling, that's different.
Yeah, and that can work. All right, let's see. Next up, Opie is the man writes. You love Opie, but you haven't seen Hearst in The Walking Dead? What? Just for Opie, please check out the last 2 seasons. It's a huge improvement. And Hearst scenes with JDM. Who's JDM? Why am I freezing?
I don't know.
Dean Morgan, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Oh, love him.
And scenes with Jeffrey Dean Morgan is hilarious. And Hearst fights with Daryl is great. He is terrifying in The Walking Dead. You don't want to cross him or he'll F you up. I've given a lot of years to watching The Walking Dead. And it's again, to me, it's not that it got bad. It's just that I'm over it. You know, so, but I don't know if enough people keep telling me that I should go back and watch the last couple seasons. I just may do it, mostly because of Brian Hearst. All right, next up, James L.H. writes, hey, John, seems having Disney Plus means patience. I waited from November to April before seeing Mandalorian when Disney Plus arrived in the UK. Waiting to see Mulan in December is easy. Not a complaint, but patience and Disney Plus new releases seem to have become a necessity. Well, I guess that's true. I take for granted, I think a lot of us take for granted who live in the North American market that we just get it when it comes out. Mm-hmm. And that Disney Plus rolled out here first. So we didn't, and a number of places did. So we didn't have to wait for Mandalorian. But yeah, right now, and listen, Aaron, I've developed some real mixed feelings about Disney Plus because as an archive, it's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Their catalog is wonderful. But let's not kid ourselves. I got Disney Plus. I got turned on to Disney Plus. I got excited about Disney Plus for the new original content. They've given me Mandalorian. And it's been what, 8 months, 9 months, and they've given me Mandalorian. They dropped Hamilton 2, great for a 1 movie shot, and everything else has been low quality, low budget, whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love The World According to. Why did I suddenly freeze on The
World According to
Jeff Goldblum?
Jeff Goldblum.
I really did enjoy that, but that.
Did you see the ice cream episode?
Oh, I did see the.
Did you see Micheline in the ice cream episode?
No, I didn't know.
So you know when he's at the Viva Las Vegas, in
the parking lot,
with all the vintage cars. Yes, is
she one of the 3 girls?
Micheline Pitt, you know her. She's my friend. I've introduced you. Yeah, she has the tattoo on the center of her chest. Yeah, we had dinner, all of us, and she has the dark hair and she's holding the parasol. Yeah, that was her.
Because they were all done up like pinup girls in
yes, that's her company, Vixen by Micheline Pitt.
I did not know.
So yeah, go back and watch that episode. That's her. Yeah.
But overall, I gotta say, I mean, look, HBO Max botched their launch by not being ready to go out on Roku and Amazon Fire. Disney Plus did. HBO Max kind of botched their launch that way, but guess what? Mm-hmm. They've got Lovecraft Country.
Yes.
And they've got Raised by Wolves, which is
I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Pretty good.
Is that not Evan Rachel Wood? On the billboards. It looks She looks like Evan Rachel Wood. I know it's not because otherwise it would say Evan Rachel Wood because she's at that point in her career. I just know it's the
guy from Vikings. I just know it's the guy from Vikings.
Yeah, I know it's not Evan Rachel Wood, but like every time I pass the billboard,
but now that you mention it, kind of
doesn't it look just like her and bald?
I have to go look into that.
I have to call you on it a little bit though. You did not sign up for Disney Plus because of their original content. You signed up because of an original content, which was Mandalorian, and you hoped that there would be more. Yes. But we were never promised more. We were promised amazing archive and Mandalorian, and that's what we got.
Yeah, and I'm coming. It's just that I'm coming to realize that.
That's all that. Yeah,
you know. And the thing is, if Disney Plus wants to be, I mean, they're signing up a lot of people right now, but at some point, the amount of competition that's building up now.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
They're going to have to.
They're going to step it up.
I'm just going to say it. Disney Plus has to do a much better job. Mm-hmm. They're just going to have to do a much better job because right now they're getting outclassed by, in my opinion, they're getting outclassed by Amazon Prime. They're getting outclassed by HBO Max. They're certainly getting outclassed by Netflix. I even think Disney's other streaming service, Hulu, is better than Disney Plus right now. So I don't know. Now, ask me again after Falcon and Winter Soldier and
right. I think that once they really start rolling out the MCU, it's going to be different. But at this point, it's also like, we got exactly what we subscribed to. It would be like, if I wanted to have a dog that was going to jump and play and run around and I could play fetch with, that's not the dog that I got.
She can be that if she wants. Joey is whatever Joey wants to be. She can be. Hi, Joey.
She literally, like, I throw a ball at her and she's like, I'm not running after that. She's like, I'm not your bitch. No, you're not.
Let's keep going here. Dylan Payton writes, "Hey, John, big fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much. And the first episode of Jedi Council. Your show has been and currently is getting me through tough times as my brother was just diagnosed with COVID-19. I'm so sorry to hear that, man. I thought The Last of Us 2 was one of the best stories of 2020. Yeah, I agree. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding Last of Us 2. Again, listen, I don't care what anybody else says, pro, negative, whatever. I don't care. All I know is I watched that 12, 16 hour, whatever it was, story of Last of Us 2, and it is shockingly good. Like it is one of the it is easily the best pure story ever told in the video game medium, but it is damn just pure cinematic. I mean, it is seriously one of the most jaw-droppingly fantastic stories ever told. I was like just simply unprepared for how good it was. So so I agree. And again, best well wishes to your brother, and I hope for a speedy recovery, my friend. All right, next up, Ryan Lohner writes, I love that so much of the Dune cast sound like Dune characters in their own right. Zendaya, Bautista, Momoa, Duncan Brewster, Bardem. It's true. I never thought of that, but you're absolutely on the money. Just their natural names sound like names that would be coming out of that. Now we just need an actor called Muad'Dib, and you're all set and ready to go. That's a great observation, Ryan. All right, Tiberius writes, "Hey, John and gang, question for Aaron.
Oh.
My wife acts on stage and the occasional extra role in film.
Wonderful.
How can I be as supportive as possible when she doesn't get a role that she wants or is flat out turned down? I want to encourage yet still be realistic with her." Now, that's a difficult. I don't know if you're qualified because you get every role that you go out for.
So not true. I didn't get Cersei Lannister.
That's true.
Which they made the absolute right choice. I will say there are some roles that I don't get, and I go, well, clearly they fucked up. But Cersei Lannister, you guys did the right thing.
What can somebody like Tiberius do as a husband? Maybe we should just call Tom. But what can he do as a husband?
Well, the same thing that I do as a wife. My husband is an actor as well, and sometimes he doesn't get roles, and sometimes I don't get roles. And
can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question,
please?
I thought I heard something, and I need to know if I misheard it. Was Tom at some point in the running for the Homelander in The Boys? Was he?
He auditioned for Homelander.
He did audition for Homelander.
Yes.
Okay, I thought.
And I auditioned for Maeve.
I knew about you and Maeve. Mm-hmm. I knew about you and Maeve, but I didn't think
He auditioned for Homelander. And clearly they were not looking for someone who was as physically imposing as Homelander looks on screen.
You guys, I know you guys, I still at some point want to have Tom on the show.
Yeah.
Tom is a physically imposing individual. He's a physically imposing individual. So he's a big dude. He's a really big dude. Anyway, sorry. What would you say to Tiberius?
So what I would say, Tiberius, is, first of all, you don't need to be realistic. The reality of being a working actor hits every actor. You don't need to be the one to bring them down, to keep them grounded. All you need to do is just say, babe, I am so sorry. I know how hard you worked on that, and I know how much you wanted it. And you know what? They messed up. All you need to do is tell her how great she did, how hard she worked. You don't need to be the voice of reality. You don't need to, make it better. All you need to do, just like when anybody's, facing any sort of disappointment, they don't want to hear, well, here's the silver lining. Nobody wants to hear that. Just say, man, I'm so sorry. That sucks. And then whatever it is that she really likes, whether it's, putting on her favorite episode of a TV show or going out for ice cream or, do something that's going to cheer her up. But she'll have reality. You don't need to be realistic for her. And, let her chase her dream as long as it makes sense for your family's financial well-being, but just say, I'm sorry. That sucks. They screwed up.
Good advice.
You were the right choice. And then you know what? Every single time that Tom and I ever watch anything that I audition for, he goes, this is what he always says to me. He goes, well, now I know why they didn't cast you. You're too pretty. He says it every single time. I mean, they could literally cast Angelina Jolie and he'd be like, oh, well, see, they just want an ugly person. Well, clearly that's why you didn't get it. That's what a good husband does. You're just too pretty. That's the problem.
You're just too
That's what a good husband does.
Tom's a smart guy.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
All right, next up, we got Willow writes, if the Dune trailer hadn't dropped in time for your show yesterday, you could have made up a reaction like you did for the Kingsman 2 trailer with Schnepp, Jeremy Johns, and Mark Riley. I don't know how you all managed to keep a straight face in the video. I vaguely remember that. I think we were supposed to, because I had put up as a thumbnail that we were going to be talking about the Dune trailer, but it didn't drop right at 9 a.m. like we thought it was going to, which was 1 hour before the show. So I was starting to worry about, oh my gosh, we titled the episode this and the trailer's not even going to drop. Maybe you're right, Willow. Maybe I should have pulled an audible and just made up my reaction to something I hadn't even seen, because you're right. I have to go back and look that up because I vaguely remember us doing that. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I finally watched Mulan and I absolutely loved it. It's my second favorite movie of the year so far after The Gentleman. Not as good as the original, but still one of the better Disney remakes. If the movie was an hour longer, I still would have loved it. Well, see, that's great. Like I said, I liked Mulan, but I just kept feeling with every step of the way like something was a missed opportunity. Like it could have been something really special. But I still overall I enjoyed it. But I'm glad you had that much of a good time with it, my friend. And that's just the thing. To me, The Gentleman is still my favorite movie of the year. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. And some hate it, some love it, some like me are a little bit in the middle. So I'm glad you liked it, man. 50 Shades also writes, a viewer recently mentioned a Black Panther prequel set in World War II, which got me thinking. In the comics, Cap came to Wakanda and fought T'Chaka. He did. Not sure when MCU Cap, and they did that in an animated thing as well. Not sure when MCU Cap had the time/opportunity to do that, but he does know about Wakanda in Age of Ultron, so who knows? Well, no, that would have been rewriting history a little bit. In the MCU, remembering, of course, that the comics and the cinematic MCU are two different things. And I thought they made it pretty clear that while you've heard of it, I mean, it is a country in the world. Everybody in the world, in the MCU world, has heard of Wakanda. It's a country in the world. They're part of the United Nations. I mean, it's a thing. But I don't think they would have to rewrite history in the MCU to say that he visited Wakanda at some point, because that's not a part of the MCU's Captain America. All right. 50 Shades also writes, the Wakandan Forever recently mentioned that he recently started watching superhero TV shows. Did you see the 2010 Black Panther animated series? Djimon Hounsou, who I also love, first discovered him in Steven Spielberg's Amistad, my favorite Steven Spielberg movie.
Which Cuba Gooding Jr. passed on.
Really? Cuba Gooding Jr. passed on that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank God. Not that I don't love Cuba Gooding Jr., but we wouldn't know Jaimon Hansu if it wasn't for that role. Good to know. As T'Challa, Kerry Washington as Shuri, and Alfre Woodard as the Queen Mother. I think you'll love it. I've never even heard of this animated show. Quite frankly, I didn't even know that thing existed. Where was it? I had no idea. Learn something new every day here, 50 Shades. All right, Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John. This has been quite the week. My fiance and I finally tied the knot this past Saturday.
Yay!
Congratulations on the nuptials. And the wedding was amazing as we could have imagined. We're now on our honeymoon and made it back to the movies to see Tennant, which was awesome, but confusing." That's the other thing I keep hearing, Aaron, is that a lot of people, there are two complaints I hear coming out of Tennant. Everybody's saying it's really good, but the sound is terrible. And a lot of people saying, I have no idea what was going on. And I had to watch it a second time to kind of get an idea. And I think that is something that Christopher Nolan maybe, and again, I haven't seen Tenet, so maybe I'll think it was perfectly fine, but Christopher Nolan's films, Dunkirk notwithstanding, have almost been progressively getting more and more confusing. Like, I think Interstellar for a lot of people was like right on the border. I think a lot of people had to see it 2 or 3 times. Maybe he went too far with Tenet. I don't know. Like, if you looked at Christopher Nolan's films, whether it's, Memento, or whether it's The Prestige or Interstellar or Inception or whatever, what stands out to you, if any, that might be his Achilles heel when you think about all the Christopher Nolan movies?
Yes, I can see him going one step too far, because when you go into a Christopher Nolan movie, it's not like it's something that you can have, playing and, you can be multitasking and still follow along as some really baseline films are. You really have to be paying attention. You have to be focused on what's going on, and you have to be looking at everything that's happening and very, very in tune with the film. That being said, if somebody who's already going into a film like Tenet knowing, okay, I have to be very hyper aware and keeping my ears and eyes open so I don't miss anything, if people still are not grasping the very concept of the movie or really what it's about without having to watch it a second or a third time. Now, I understand, wanting to go back and watching a film after, like rewatching The Sixth Sense once you know about, the little kid and what he sees. We've all seen Sixth Sense, right? He sees dead people. So once you know that, and then you go back and watch it, that's a different thing. If people are saying, I really didn't understand the movie until I watched it a second or third time, not everybody is going to take the time to go back and watch a film 2 or 3 times, especially when there's so many things out there. What I still don't understand is, with the incredible amount of money spent on this film and the number of delays that gave them the extra time to work on the sound, how can you have a film like this have sound problems? It doesn't make any sense to me, because it's not like they didn't realize it until all of a sudden it was in theaters and they were like, whoa, why does it sound so crazy? Oh, well, too late to change it. I mean, they play these movies with every type of sound
just how
system.
Christopher Nolan likes to mix his sound. It's crazy that it's always, and not always, but often an issue with a lot of his movies. It's one of the unfortunate things. Okay, well, so at some point, his Achilles heels are going to start affecting his bottom line. I don't think it'll be for Tenet, but at a certain point, as he becomes, I think, more and more untouchable, which certain directors become, similar to Al Pacino. There are certain actors that people stop directing, and only certain directors, maybe Martin Scorsese can direct Al Pacino, but you put him with another director who's maybe not as confident. They're like, well, how am I going to direct Al Pacino? I'm not going to tell Al Pacino what to do. I'm just going to let him do his thing. Don't listen to Kevin Smith tell stories about trying to direct Bruce Willis in that cop movie he did. Yes, exactly. And so I think that at a certain point, Christopher Nolan is going to become the same thing, where the people around him, his producers, the people who otherwise would be able to say, dude, you got to fix this. No one's going to try to check him on anything because he's just Christopher Nolan. So yeah, I can see that becoming a big problem. All right, now let's move on here. Angela Lansbury doing yoga writes, hello. I think when the Batman was announced, that Gucci movie got announced too, and the cast is insane. Lady Gaga, Jared Leto, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and directed by Ridley Scott. Excluding Marvel, what is your favorite cast or strongest cast of all time? Oh, you don't have to exclude Marvel. It wouldn't come into play anyway. To me, the strongest cast, the best ensemble performance I've ever seen in a movie to this day is Shawshank Redemption. Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, Clancy Brown, but it's not just them. It's every single supporting character along the way carry this massively impressive movie every step of the way. Like, they just all immersed you. The ensemble performance of Shawshank Redemption to this day is my favorite cast performance overall in any movie ever. It wasn't stacked with all the biggest sexy names. That's not what makes a great ensemble performance. It's just that everybody played their roles to absolute stunning perfection. And to me, Shawshank is an example of that. Aaron, if you had to pick one movie or a couple that stand out to you as being like your favorite, ensemble performances or best cast you've ever seen, where would your head go?
So easy. Clue.
Really?
I mean, just genius. The way that they work together, the comedic timing, the tableaus that they set. I mean, even the guy who's originally supposed to be the bad guy, who essentially is dead the entire movie, and they're using him almost as a Weekend at Bernie's type puppet whenever the cop comes in. I mean, even the role that I want to play. I am your singing telegram. Bang. I mean, even she has half of a line and she's just one of my most memorable points in the entire film. I thought that the cast of Clue is phenomenal. And what's the British World War I film that came out last 1917. Speaking to your point about every single person being so invested, there's a really funny it wasn't a Vine. It was like an Instagram or TikTok or Snap, whatever. Something about this guy who's faking a comedic thing as if he's one of the background actors on 1917, and he's sort of like lost in a moment, and then all of a sudden the camera goes past
James?
him.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'll find it.
Stuff like that.
I'll find it and I'll send it to you. But the reality is, when you watch 1917. And the entire movie looks like it's done in one take. I mean, there's so many background actors, and they're all so invested in that moment. And then all they have is the camera just walking right past them. They have just that one quick little moment. And to have background actors, that many of them, be so invested in the character that they're shivering or writing a letter to, their parents, or they're rolling a cigarette, just the minor little detail of the background actors to be so invested, I thought was incredible. Beautiful.
All right. Next up, we got Zayan, who writes, hey, John, Denis Villeneuve said that Paul's arc would have some similarities with Michael Corleone, and in the trailer, he said that when fear is gone, he will remain, or something like that. Obviously, we're talking about the Dune trailer. Something like that. Over or under 30%, he wipes out the other houses or enemies, a la Michael at the end. I don't think Denis Villeneuve was talking about major plot differences and major plot points, but when you look at Paul Atreides and you look at Michael Corleone, there are definitely thematic similarities. People, like members of this family, not necessarily wanting to take over the family, families of power, the begrudgingly taking it on, and then really coming into it a little bit later on. I think he's really talking about playing into those aspects, not fundamental changes in the overall plot structure of what happens in the story. So that's what I think he's referring to. We'll find out soon enough. You may be right, but I'm going to go under. I think he was talking about that other stuff. At least that's what I think. Could be wrong. All right, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John, did you see what the great Canadian Ryan Reynolds did? Oh, I know what we're talking about here. He brought that other great Canadian, Rick Moranis, out of retirement from a U.S. citizen, from an U.S., I think he probably meant from a U.S. citizen. Ryan is the greatest. You, Ryan, and Rick are my three favorite Canadians. Hope that's not taken the wrong way. No, did you see that, by the way, online? So, one of the big stories in Hollywood for the past 20 years has been, where's Rick Moranis? Everybody wants Rick Moranis back. And of course, if you guys don't know the story of Rick Moranis, and it's really touching, you should go and read about why he kind of withdrew out of Hollywood and he's an amazing man. Good Canadian kid, obviously. Finally reappeared. Ryan Reynolds, who's part owner of I think it's Mint Mobile or one of the Canadian mobile services, did a commercial and got Rick Moranis to appear. And they break the fourth wall on it. And it's like, oh, look, Ryan Reynolds is doing the commercial. Oh, look, it's iconic Rick Moranis. And hi, he comes in, it's like, so why am I here? It's like, just to be here. You got to see it. It's like absolutely hilarious.
I thought that isn't he planning on doing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids again?
There was word of that, but I don't know if that's ever 100% confirmed. I hope so.
Oh, wow.
Because the world needs Rick Moranis.
I agree.
Just absolutely needs Rick Moranis.
But does Rick Moranis need the world?
No,
there's a part of me that just wants to go, hey man, if you're happy and you're living your life, keep living it.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe he thinks,
but yes,
the
we
world
would all
needs
love
some
to
joy
see.
right now.
Yes.
It needs me. Needs Rick Moranis. I think he looks in the mirror and talks to himself in the third person. I can't.
Just because you do that doesn't mean that Rick Moranis does that.
Every day. All right, but that was awesome, Ben. All right, anonymous viewer writes, folks, the Tennant sound mix sucks. Me. In Nolan, I trust. Do you trust in him, John? I don't trust in his sound mix. No, it's because this isn't the first time. I mean, he has proven that he has a problem when it comes to his particular taste in sound mixing, both in the volumes of certain sound effects and music, but also specifically when it comes to dialogue. That is his Achilles heel. I still trust that he's going to make an amazing movie. That's why Tennant was my second most anticipated movie of the year. So I completely trust that he will make a great movie at the end of the day. But I don't doubt people who tell me that amongst this great movie is the problem of poor sound mix. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, one can be true. They're not mutually exclusive. You can trust in Christopher Nolan and acknowledge that he has a problem with the sound mixes. So they're not mutually exclusive things. All right, Isaac Beebe writes, I honestly believe that Star Wars fans can be some of the best fans in the world and also the worst. That's true. Even if the sequel trilogy was planned out from the beginning and some fans didn't like it or even hated it, there would still have been some toxic people saying that. No, I don't think so. I think if it was clear that the sequel trilogy had a definitive plan, I don't think people would be criticizing it for not having a definitive plan. They may still be criticizing it if they didn't like the movies. Like, look at the prequels. The prequels are terrible. But one of the things you cannot criticize about the prequels is that clearly George Lucas had a plan. Like when he sat down and made the very first of the when he made The Phantom Menace, he had a plan. I mean, I'm sure he worked out some details as he went along, but overall he said, this is my starting point and that's my ending point. And that's what this journey is going to be. And he had that planned out. So say what you want about the prequels. The fact is, at least they clearly had a plan. I mean, I think the sequel movies are better movies objectively. It's all subjective, obviously. But I'm saying I think the sequel movies are all better than the prequels. But the prequels had a plan. And it came down to execution. So no, I think if the sequels clearly had a definitive plan, they saw that they had a plan, maybe we'd be criticizing the sequels for other things, but it wouldn't be that. Because you don't hear people criticizing the prequels for not having a plan. That's my take on it anyway, Isaac. All right, Isaac also writes, they should have done each film separately so that they weren't tied to one singular story. I can guarantee that would have happened. That would have happened because Star Wars fans above any other fandom in the world can be entitled, selfish assholes. I actually blame the fans for how the Star Trek, I don't know what ST means. Guys, please don't write in acronyms. Turned out because they shat all over episodes 7 and 8 without having seen what Trevorrow's 9 was going to be, forcing Lucasfilm to do a complete 180 without knowing where the overall story was going. Look, bottom line is this. Nobody forced Lucasfilm to do anything. Let's just be clear about that. Nobody forced Lucasfilm to do anything. Lucasfilm can do whatever they want to do. Nobody forces Kevin Feige to do anything that he doesn't think would be best for his cinematic universe. He does what he thinks is best. That's what Lucasfilm could have done. Nobody forced him to do it. They made choices. Do I think that the sequel trilogy revealed a certain toxic element to the Star Wars fandom? Absolutely it did. That much is obvious. But I also think you can't blame them for forcing Lucasfilm to do anything. Lucasfilm made their choices. They chose to start off a new trilogy without having an overall story idea. They chose to rapidly change things, particularly when they got into the third film. Nobody forced them to do anything. So let's just be clear about that. All right. The Wakandan Forever writes, one of two. John, it has been a crazy month. If the death of Chadwick Boseman, King T'Challa, was not enough, I just got word that a close friend of mine lost his house in Talent, Oregon, due to the wildfires. He is safe in an evacuation station now, but man, 2020, I tell you, I always say life is 50-50, so I will try not to be all doom and gloom. A local artist I know got his painting in the De Young Museum in San Francisco. This is the most insane year I can ever remember. A roller coaster. Last thing, I took your advice and watched the one show that was missing from my list, Umbrella Academy. It is definitely on my list now. Everyone, please stay safe out there. If we all hold on, there is bound to be better days ahead. Wakanda forever. First of all, yeah, so sorry to hear that your friend lost their house in the wildfires. Suck, and believe me, living in the valley. And I don't know if we've had them in the hills, like right behind us. Like, I even took a video. I went out into the street one night and said, brought up the video saying, there, the hills are on fire and everything. So I don't know how affected you've been in your area of town, but
we don't really get them down where I am because it's so built in the basin. But I mean, from my roof, we have a shot of the hills, the Hollywood sign and the Getty and everything like that. But I don't feel like this side of the hill, again, it's so built up on this side. For those of you who don't know, I'm like more on the Hollywood side. So we don't really get as much of it. But yeah, just it for everyone who is especially a little bit north in the Bay Area, in Oregon. Just I've been listening and watching the news, and it's just awful. If you know people, reach out to who live in the area, reach out to them, see how you can help, see what you can offer, because there's a lot of people that are suffering and that are displaced right now.
Well said.
And we don't even know about the death toll numbers because it's been too dangerous for people, for rescue teams to even go into a lot of these areas. So it's going to be really bad.
Side note, building on something Wakandan said, that's my next. You guys also got to do, after you finish Harley Quinn, you guys got to do Kim's Convenience. Tom, I hope you would too, because Anne loves it. Tom would love Umbrella Academy. Have you guys started? Have you or Tom started watching Umbrella Academy?
I think he's watching it. Yeah, because I'll like walk in and he's watching something, and they're all standing in the rain. So I'm assuming that's Umbrella Academy.
Anne loves that show.
Okay,
and I love that show. They just put out their second season. You gotta watch it.
Okay.
Gotta watch Umbrella Academy. Finish Harley Quinn, though.
Oh, yes.
And then make sure you also watch Kim's Convenience, but then you gotta watch that. Anyway, we have kept you over time. We know you and Joey have things to do.
We have to go on a walk.
Anyway, in the meantime, though, look at Joey. I love Joey. In the meantime, where can people follow you and Joey's adventures online?
You can find us at Erin L. Cummings, or you can go to Rat Pat Cats and see Joey and some of her siblings as well, which I have to update some more pictures on there. But yeah, check us out online. We're on Instagram and Twitter.
All right. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
We will talk to you guys later. Bye, Joey. All right, guys. We still have some time here, so we're going to keep going through your questions, and we'll, of course, see Erin back here next week. Okay. Next one up, we've got Andy Hong, who writes, 1 of 4. John, let's go back to a time when the DCEU was in a crazy shitstorm before Walter Hamada came along. The DCEU was on the brink of collapse. Even you suggested that maybe WB should reboot it, and had one controversy after another. Justice League underperforming at the box office with mixed critical and audience reception. Reports of Warner Brothers heads refusing to delay Justice League in order to gain bonuses. Flash directors leaving. Projects getting scrapped or rearranged. And reports of Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill leaving. By the way, kudos to Walter Hamada for inheriting all those issues and methodically dealing with all of them. Now, let's say the Ezra Miller choking incident happened right after all that. What would have happened? I'm sure that Warner Brothers would have at least addressed it with no pandemic to hide behind. I'm 99% sure The Flash would have been recasted. Would this have been the final straw that broke the camel's back that forces Warner Brothers to reboot the DCU? I believe it would be the final straw after all the onslaughts of problems. So, okay, so we're talking about a strictly hypothetical situation. A strictly hypothetical situation. If hypothetically the Ezra Miller choking incident happened right on the heels of all the other stuff that was going on, and the pandemic wasn't. And you're right, Warner Brothers completely has, and maybe smartly, used the pandemic as a distraction to count that everybody would just forget about the Ezra Miller choking incident. Okay. If it had happened before the pandemic, right on the heels of all that stuff, would it have been the final nail in the coffin? Two things. One, yes, I think they would have recasted Ezra Miller, because they wouldn't have had the pandemic as a distraction from what was going on. I do think they would have recasted Ezra Miller. I'm not saying they should have recasted. I'm just saying that's what I think they probably would have done. Second, I don't think they would have rebooted. Now, I believed at the time that maybe the safest bet by then was just to reboot the universe, clean slate, fresh blank white sheet of paper with a full easel of paints to paint the new universe they want, the way they want to do it. But they decided to move forward, but change philosophy. I think you raise a great point, Andy. Walter Hamada, as much credit as I give him, I think a lot of us, including myself, don't fully appreciate what Walter Hamada has done over there. Because pre-Walter Hamada, you're right, the good ship DC cinematic universe was on fire and sinking. There wasn't just one problem. There was a collage of problems going on over there. And that is what Walter Hamada stepped in and inherited. He inherited a cinematic universe and a cinematic, endeavor that was in utter, complete chaos. And what did he do? He said, time out. We're going to reel it all back in. We're going to get back to basics. We're going to focus on individual movies and making good individual movies. We are going to rehabilitate our image with the audience. We're going to regain the trust of the industry and of the fans. We're going to do all this stuff. And what Walter Hamada has been able to do, just a little while ago, we did a video where we called it Why Warner Brothers and DC right now, I believe, are better positioned than even the MCU is. And that all goes to the leadership of Walter Hamada. That all goes to the leadership of Walter Hamada. And that's why I believe today, when you think of Warner Brothers, it's not the way 2 years ago we instantly thought of Warner Brothers. You think of Warner Brothers 2 years ago, the first thought is of the Keystone Cops and Benny Hill music playing, and like guys running around all over. Now, today, you think of the DCU and what Marvel and what Warner Brothers is doing with it. Now you think of a steady ship, right? Now you think of a place that's got its shit in order. And I mean, who knows what the next film will be? Who knows if the Batman's going to be any good? Who knows if this Flash movie actually gets made? Who knows? But right now, they're in such a better place than they have been in for years. And a lot of that goes to Walter Hamada, and I'm glad you're giving him his due, Andy. I think that's well said. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, since Disney kind of screwed the pooch with Star Wars and is also losing a lot of money during the pandemic, would they be better off just... Sorry, anonymous. Would they be better off just selling Lucasfilm to another company to gain more financial stability? Okay, number one. Disney, subjectivity, whatever, Disney did not screw the pooch when it came to Star Wars. Rogue One is a fantastic movie. The Force Awakens, I should say, is a fantastic movie. Solo is a really good, fun movie. I liked the Last Jedi, although I do have my problems with it. And I thought The Rise of Skywalker was flat out terrible. A result of trying to do a trilogy with no plan, and it just ended badly. That I give it. But Mandalorian has also been a huge hit for them and what they did and all that kind of stuff. You got to take that in consideration as well. So no, I utterly reject any world that isn't some weird fantasy land that they just overall screwed the pooch on Star Wars. Not at all. I think there's enough there. Plus, should they just sell Lucasfilm? Look, here's something to put it in context. Under Disney, hell, under Kathleen Kennedy, who, I think should step down. I think Kathleen Kennedy should step down as the head of Lucasfilm. I do. She's a first ballot Hall of Famer in the Hollywood Hall of Fame. She's one of the greatest producers in the history of Hollywood. But she has fundamentally failed in some of the most important aspects of being the head of a studio. 2 different jobs, being a producer and the head of a studio. Anyway, but under Kathleen Kennedy, Star Wars movies make more money per movie than Kevin Feige's Marvel Cinematic Universe does. Let that sink in for a second. Just let that sink in for a second. Star Wars movies under Disney and under Kathleen Kennedy make more money per film on a per film average than Kevin Feige's Marvel Cinematic Universe does. There's no point there other than to say it's ludicrous. It's absolutely phenomenally ludicrous to suggest that Disney should just sell Lucasfilm. It's preposterous. It's utterly preposterous. Do they need to do a better job moving forward? Oh, that's beyond question. That's without question. Of course they do. But they have also, you have to come from a position of having a serious agenda if you don't acknowledge they've had some big successes and some big wins. They have. Rogue One, Force Awakens, still the number 1 domestically in the US, still the number 1 box office film of all time. Mandalorian is a big hit. I mean, unless you're coming from a position of extreme bias and extreme agenda, you have to acknowledge they've had some big wins. And also, unless you're coming from a position of extreme bias and extreme agenda, you also have to acknowledge they've had some big misses. You have to acknowledge both of those are true. But when you actually step back and look at it as an entire picture, it's utterly preposterous when you look at just financially the success they've had. It's a preposterous notion to suggest that maybe they should just sell Lucasfilm. It's utterly ridiculous. It's an utterly ridiculous thing. All right, Justin writes, love the show. It's my go-to podcast every single day. Thank you for that, Justin. I noticed the show hasn't been on Spotify since September the 1st. Keep up the great work. Yeah, I noticed that myself the other day. I didn't know about this till a couple of days ago. For some reason, Spotify has not been updating the podcast feed, and I don't know why. I am uploading the podcast as normal, but since September 1st, which nothing has changed on our end, Spotify has not been updating its feed, so I will have to look into that and figure out why people trying to listen on Spotify haven't been getting the new one. So other than that, I don't know why. All right, Luna Star writes, hey, John. Where are we at? Hey, John, what are your thoughts about the controversy surrounding the Netflix film Cuties? I wanted to withhold judgment. Then I saw a 2-minute clip of a scene on Twitter, and wow, it really is as bad as people are saying. Okay, so to me, the Cuties thing is a non-story. And here's why. It is mostly an absolute non-issue and non-story to me personally, because I have not seen the movie. It's also a thing to me that the people that this is the biggest controversy for have also never seen the movie. Everyone that I know, and again, I haven't seen the movie. Everyone that I know that has seen, I know about 5 or 6 people who have actually seen the film. I think most of them saw it even before it got to Netflix. Like they saw it before they got to Netflix. All the people that I know who have seen it have said it's a really good, heartfelt movie that they thought is actually really quite great. The problem seems to be the way Netflix has marketed the film. Again, I have not seen the movie. I am simply going on everyone I know who has seen it says it's actually quite a heartfelt, charming, really good movie. The controversy seems more to be around the thing. And unfortunately, it's also a problem that a lot of people who are saying this movie is terrible are like you, Luna, haven't actually seen the movie. You're going off of a 2-minute clip you saw? Anyway, so to me, it's a non-story. Now, maybe to me personally, it becomes an issue if I ever sit down and watch it. It just doesn't look like it's the type of movie that's for me, so I haven't watched it. And maybe if I did watch it, to me, it would become an issue. Or maybe I would feel like the people I know who have seen it said, actually, it's quite a good film. And it's blah. But it just seems like really more than anything else, the problem was the way Netflix marketed the film. And then I saw like Netflix issued an apology for the way they marketed it, and they took down the marketing they had done for it, and they changed the way they marketed it. So to me, honestly, right now, from a personal point of view, it's a complete non-story. That's the way it is to me at any rate. All right. Next up, Eric Huffman writes, Happy No Pants Thursday. When should we expect to see your documentary about trailers? Trailer discussion has been one of the best aspects of your commentary, so this project I can't wait to support. Thanks and stay sweaty. First of all, Eric, thank you so much for plugging my documentary. As a matter of fact, there are still some technical issues that I'm working on, some sound issues, some color issues. I haven't made the credits yet, but the edit, as of yesterday, the edit on my documentary is now locked. The edit's done. The edit's done. And I'm very proud of this little documentary. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to win any Academy Awards. Whatever. It is me, a fucking idiot who doesn't actually know how to make movies, making a movie. But I gotta tell you, I am so proud of this little project, and I personally love it. Now, of course, I love it because I kind of made it to appeal to me, right? So that means there are going to be some people who don't and some people who do, and whatever it is, it's all fine. I love this movie. I really do. This little documentary editorial thing, for those of you who don't know, it's about movie trailers, but specifically, it's not really about trailers, period. It's about trailers and the trailer's relationship with the audience. So it's not just some academic look at the history of trailers and, and the different whatever. There's a little bit of that. There is a bit of that in the movie. But it's really a focus on trailers, where they came from, and how the relationship that trailers have with the audience. And how that relationship between trailers and us as the audience has changed and evolved, and how that relationship has changed trailers, and how trailers have changed the audience. And I got some wonderful people who appear in it, and all I can tell you is soon. Soon. You're going to be able to see this movie soon. Definitely by the end of the year. Definitely by the end of the year. I'm thinking by the end of October. Right now, if everything goes well, by the end of October, there will be ways for you to watch the movie. So keep your eyes open for it. Thank you, Eric, for giving me an opportunity to plug it. Yes, it is coming soon. It is coming soon. Thank you for bringing it up, man. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, my top 10 in no particular order: Star Wars trilogy, Lord of the Rings, Forrest Gump, Toy Story, Wizard of Oz, Disney's Aladdin. Oh, I love that movie so much. It's a Wonderful Life. Good to see that get some love. Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Love all those films. Let me see. How many? 1, 2. 2 of your films are in my... 2 of your top 10 are also in my top 10. That's a beautiful thing about top 10s. They're all so wildly diverse, but I love every single one of the movies you got on your list, Anonymous. Well said. All right, Dexstar writes, hello, hope all is well. All is well, Dexstar. Thank you for asking. I'm a cinephile, but not snobby. The Lost World Jurassic Park is my favorite film of all time, right after Haxan. I'm not even familiar with that film. I was thinking, with MCU/DC being so impactful, would maybe an Iron Man, Winter Soldier, or Dark Knight be Criterion level? I don't know what you mean by that. Like, what do you mean? Are they Criterion level? Well, first of all, Criterion is just a subjective thing as anything else is. Are you asking, like, could those movies, being as popular as they are today, could those possibly consider like Criterion Collection level kind of stuff? It all depends. It depends on the personal tastes of those who adjudicate such things. So I'm not really sure. But I've never heard anybody say Jurassic Park Lost World is their favorite movie. I've never heard anybody say that. And so it's really cool to hear it. So thanks for sharing that, Dexstar. All right, Dexstar also writes, hello again. Kenneth Branagh always gets me excited. I agree. Me too. I don't love everything Kenneth Branagh's done. Like, I'm not a big fan of Murder on the Orient Express, even though I was really looking forward to it. Before I even saw Cinderella, I heard Cinderella was like, what the fudge is this? And even with Thor, the most slept on MCU movie ever made, so many great emotional moments, so well made. Cinderella and Thor are awesome. Listen, bar none to me, Thor or Man of Steel, the Superman film Man of Steel starring Henry Cavill, is the most underrated comic book movie of all time. That's by a mile, easy. But to me, the second most underrated comic book movie of all time is indeed Thor. Kenneth Branagh's Thor, I believe, is the second most underrated comic book movie ever made. I absolutely love the film. And his Cinderella, Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, is masterful. I love that movie. And I think Disney has a very hit and miss record with their live action adaptations. But Cinderella was special. I loved Cinderella with Lily James. I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. And I love what he did with that, Dexstar. All right, next up. James Bonner writes, tips in $20. Thank you, James, for supporting the channel on that level, man. We really appreciate that here. Good morning, all. Just watched the episode of Cold Case Aaron was in. I remember the episode quite well. The show was one of my favorite cop dramas with its use of flashbacks and multiple cast members to play younger and older versions of characters. Yeah, that was one of the first shows that I ever watched Aaron in. It was one of the first. Now, the first thing I had ever seen Aaron in was Bitch Slap, the movie she referenced earlier, that she did with America Olivo and Julia Voth. I really like Bitch Slap. It's a real fun little movie. That was the only thing I'd ever really seen her in. And then she did a movie of mine. And then the first TV thing I saw her in was Cold Case, I believe. That was before she did Spartacus. I might not be remembering it correctly, but I think that was before she did Spartacus. So I think that was the first TV thing I saw her in. Then, of course, she got the role in Spartacus. Asura in Spartacus, Spartacus's wife. And obviously, she killed it in that. And then she's been in like 20 shows since. But I think that was the first thing. I remember she had a little viewing party at her place in Hollywood. So me and a bunch of other people went down to watch her episode of Cold Case in Hollywood. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad you remember that one, James. All right. Missy writes, sir, you look very handsome with your slightly longer hair and side parting. Just saying, I don't know. I'm going to tell you straight up. I'm struggling with my hair. You guys know, who have watched me for any period of time, I generally like to keep my hair shorter, right? I generally like to keep the hair shorter. I like to keep it tight, all that kind of stuff. That's how I generally like to keep my hair. It has been a bit of a struggle. And once my hair, see, I can't do my hair the way I normally do my hair once my hair gets to a certain length like this. And I just don't know what else to do with it other than to brush it to the side. I think I look like an 8-year-old boy, personally. But my wife loves it. I don't know why. Anne loves my hair like this. She doesn't want me to get my hair cut. It drives me crazy. I have no idea. That's why most days you'll see me wearing like the hat. I'll wear the hat most days. So I've got to do it that way, unfortunately. But thank you for adding your commentary on that. You and my wife like my hair like this. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I keep growing it? I used to have hair like down to here, like back in my band playing days. I used to have like hair down to here. I do miss that. I just don't think I have the patience to grow it out to that length. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Thank you, Missy. That's very nice of you to say. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, become a huge fan of your show last month. Oh, thank you so much for that. It's the single best YouTube movie talk show. Do you consider yourself a member of the fandom menace? Do you think there's a toxic fan contingent? P.S. Aaron, you're a beautiful woman inside and out. No, I am definitely not a member of fandom menace. No, I have nothing to say about them. I mean, positively or negative, I have nothing to say about it. But all I will say is that I am definitely not a member of that. No, but again, I'm not making any criticism. I'm not making any commentary on it at all. I'm just definitely not a member of that. No. Never Lose Your Nerd writes, I'm sorry, but I have to respond to all the crybabies saying Tennant was too loud. I went to see it in Dolby Digital because I want the loud sounds and bass. For me, it was less hard to follow than Inception, but it was great sound and was no issue for me. Well, I mean, first off, Never Lose. You lost me when you start instantly. You said people who are making the observation that the sound is too loud for them to enjoy, just coming out and calling them crybabies. There's nothing crybabyish about pointing out a technical flaw in a film. Maybe you didn't experience the same technical flaw. Maybe it didn't for you, and maybe I won't either. But you lose anybody who's going to listen to you when you just start off when talking about a technical issue in a film and saying people were pointing out a legitimate technical issue as being crybaby. So you just kind of lost anybody wanting to hear what you had to say at that point. All right, Taj in Cars writes, haha, it was just me a few months back who suggested COVID Heist. Glad they stole the idea. Now, if Hollywood could steal my Predator movie set in the height of the Mayan era, like the flashbacks in Alien vs. Predator, think Stargate with a twist. Yeah, I mean, listen, the idea of a heist story, because if you think about it, the core idea of a world being in lockdown, being ripe for a heist, right? I think it just kind of writes itself in many ways. I think just in many ways, it just kind of writes itself. So I think it's a great idea. I am over and done right now. Maybe in 10 years, I'll be up for Predator again, but I'm kind of done on Predator altogether. I'm not interested in anything but Back in Time, whatever. Not interested, to be honest. But to ask me again in a few years, because I was really sold on this latest Predator that Shane Black did, because I love Shane Black. I thought the trailers looked great, and that movie, it's all subjective, granted, but that movie was terrible. And all Predator stuff had been terrible. There was that one where they're on the foreign planet where they brought humans there as a game reserve, a hunting reserve. That one was not bad. But for the most part, they'd really struggled. So I'm kind of over the Predator stuff. Maybe again in 5 or 10 years, I might be ready to try it again. But for now, I'm just kind of, that's just kind of where I'm at on it right now. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. Thanks again to Aaron and Joey for being here. Thank you to all of you guys who made this show a part of your day. And a special thank you to all of you who sent in those live comments and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here on this channel, thank you guys very much for that. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't done so already, click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the channel. And guys, make sure to come back and check us out tomorrow. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.